They were constantly testing him. They
agree to disagree. Susan Garrett, she's a very famous reward-based trainer, and a lot of people love her. But should they? The fact that someone is a reward-based trainer doesn't necessarily mean that they know everything they need to know about dog training. So this is why I'm reviewing one of her videos today, because you asked me to.
There's 4 defining elements of how I get that joy in criteria.
I apologize in advance. It's really tricky to move my face around whenever there's text on the screen, and in different videos the text is going to be in different places. So if there is something really important underneath, I'm just gonna switch so you can see. Actually, let me do it right now. Oh, but now it's actually gonna be smaller.
For my dogs. Whack. W-A-C-C. Whack. I don't know if it's whack. I don't know. You guys can make up your own. The letters just came together.
I'm not the person to ask. Did you hear my accent? If it was me, I would probably call it was.
So the W is...
The W is wait for it. Got it? It's a W. Wait for it.
Wait for it.
It needs to be worth the dog's while. It needs to be worthwhile. If I ask my dog to sit and I'm in the kitchen, I might have like a piece of cheese in my hand. And so there's no other distractions around. Hey, it's worth my while. I'm going to sit. Boom. My butt's hitting the ground. Yeah, I'll do everything you want. If I take that same dog and I take them to like out in the woods and there's squirrels and rabbits and chipmunks and I ask them to sit, it might not be worth their while.
Yeah, I completely agree. When we are dealing with operant conditioning, and that includes both rewarding the dog's good behaviors and punishing the dog's bad behaviors. In both of those techniques, it needs to mean something to the dog, or the way that Garrett calls it, it needs to be worthwhile for the dog. When we're talking about reward-based training, it needs to be worth more than whatever the trigger is, or more than whatever, let's say we're dealing with a dog that steals items and you're trying to train the dog to drop one item to get something else. The something else needs to worth more than the original one. Otherwise, it's going to be hard. Why? Because they're going to be rewarded by the other thing and not what you're giving them. Same as punishment-based training. If you use a shock collar and you shock your dog on a low level that hurts him, but it's still worth more to get to that bunny on the other side of the road, it's worth more to get to the bunny than to be bothered by the shock. Of course, it's much more complicated than that, especially when we're dealing with punishment, and that's why it's technically always best to avoid it.
Because there's too many other good things going on. So you might not get that sit. Does that mean it's impossible? My definition of bringing the dog joy, to get a dog to sit out in the woods with all those distractions? No, it is possible, but you need to build it up layer by layer. Can a dog find joy sitting when there's squirrels around they want to chase? Absolutely. Just like my dogs can find joy in sitting at the start line in agility when there's nothing on this earth they'd rather do than run agility.
That's true. And I did make 2 videos with reward-based trainers showing how they can train their dogs to be fine around wildlife and not chasing them.
It needs to be worth the dog's while, whatever it is you're asking. Now, does that mean you always have to have a piece of cookie on you or their favorite toy? Absolutely not. That's what good dog training is about.
I also agree with that. A lot of people believe that reward-based training means giving your dog treats all the time. And it's not true. It's actually not the goal. If someone is telling you that, they probably don't know what reward-based training actually means.
But it needs to be worth, in your dog's mind, they've got to say, hey, this is good. Criteria is currency between the dog and I. And they go, yeah, I like it when she asks me to do something. It's great. W, worthwhile. Number 2, the A, it needs to be achievable.
I also agree with that. If you make something that's too hard for your dog, I don't know if that's what she means. I didn't watch this video yet. But technically, if you make something that's too difficult for your dog and the dog won't be able to do it, so he's not gonna be rewarded for doing what you want the dog to do, then it's not gonna be achievable. It might even cause some frustration, which is just the opposite of what you want to be doing. And that's why many times when we're working on training a dog a new behavior or working on actually training a dog out of an unwanted behavior, we will do it in many small baby steps. Why? Because that will make everything much more achievable.
What you're expecting of your dog, what you're asking of your dog is something that they are able to do. So I couldn't take a dog off the street and expect them to be able to run an agility course flawlessly. That's not achievable for them. They've never seen any of the equipment. I would need to break all of that equipment down into small pieces, small skill sets.
Exactly. As I said, baby steps. I don't work with owners to teach them how to train their dogs for competitions. Because of my profession, I usually deal with unwanted behaviors like aggression and anxiety and so on. But I do love to see a dog enjoying his job, and I think most people that work on training dogs to do agility, like we just saw, amazing. I really love seeing those dogs.
Teach them all the little elements of each skill set before they'd be able to run an entire agility course. So is taking a dog like Tater Salad, when he first came here,
Tater Salad, love the name.
Didn't have the understanding of very much, and if he loved chipmunks. If we were to take him out in the backyard and ask him to sit, would that be achievable? Not likely, because he really didn't understand what sit meant, and he loved to chase chipmunks. So it needs to be achievable with the education your dog has at that point in time in the environment that you have put him in. This first C is your expectations need to be clear to the dog.
Also, I completely agree, and it makes sense that it follows the achievable. Because if something is not clear, then the dog won't be able to achieve it. And again, the way to do that is usually by doing something that maybe your dog already knows, or something that's not your end goal, but is a lot easier for your dog to do, and from there you can build up to what you want your dog to achieve. No, if your cue is not accurate, if you're giving contradictions when you're giving your cues, or when you're actually trying to teach the dog to do something, it's going to fail. The dog is going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated. Try not to get there. Again, usually if you do things in baby steps, it's going to be a lot easier.
They need to be black and white. There's an obvious, this is correct and this is incorrect. It can't be, this is correct for now. Because here's the thing, sometime is any time to a dog. So if you have a rule that your dog isn't allowed on the couch, then they can't be allowed on the couch sometime.
Yes, dogs in a way can sometimes be very simple. They can read a clock and say, oh, between midnight and 4 p.m. we're allowed to be on the couch, but when the owners come back home between 4 and 8 p.m. we're not allowed on the couch, or we're not allowed on the bed. Some dogs might be able to learn differences, but usually there's going to be another stimulus in the house. So for example, the dog learns that when the owner is home, they can't pee because they're going to be punished. But when the owner is away from home, they can pee safely in the house. So basically the dog didn't really learn that he can't pee in the house. He just learned that he might be punished, so he can't do it when the owner is in the house, which might sometimes look like the dog is doing something on purpose. But again, that's not the case. Taking it back to my profession for a second. So sometimes I will have the owners do a specific type of interaction with the dog. For example, I will ask them to always let the dog nose before they touch him. And I will want everyone in the house to do it, not just one specific person. I will want all of them to let the dog know. And I also want them to always do it, not just sometimes. That's how they need to communicate with the dog all the time. Why? Because this creates consistency and predictability for the dog. And if the dog knows what he's being expected to do and not to do, it's a lot easier, again, for both the dog and the owners.
And then other times you get disappointed or frustrated or angry because you've just come in from a hike and they're muddy and they jump on the couch. Sometime is any time to a dog. Now, does that mean, oh, I should never let my dog on the couch? No, it just means you need to manage your expectations when your dog is muddy. If you want your dog on the furniture, have at it. Just don't give them the free will to come in when they're muddy and jump on the couch.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Again, I don't have anything against dogs being on couches or dogs being on your bed. But if your dog might bite you or the kids when he's on furniture, then I always want the dog to be off those furniture and not just when the kids are around. That might complicate things a lot. It's a lot easier to just keep them off the furniture all the time. But if you don't have any issues whatsoever with the dog being on the furniture at all times, enjoy.
You don't have the right to get mad. The currency of the criteria has been spent. You've said you're allowed on the furniture. Sometime is any time to the dog. It needs to be black and white. I tell you what, a little pet peeve of mine, you're learning a lot about my pet peeves here on the podcast, is when somebody comes to my house and they start training my dog, which is a little cray-cray. Why do you come to a professional dog trainer's house?
Did she just say cray-cray? Other than kids, I didn't hear anyone use that term before, which is kind of cray-cray. Or is it kind of sus?
And start training their dog. So they'll say things like, sit down to my dog. Those are two separate behaviors with two sets of criteria that are in complete opposition to each other. It would be like me asking you to, could you run over there and stand still right here, please?
That's a great example. Sometimes we're not even aware that we do something like that. I mean, you would tell a person, sit down. But if you taught your dog that sit means one thing and down means another thing, you can't use sit down to make him sit.
Well, those are two different behaviors, Susan. Yeah, I know exactly. Sit and down are two different behaviors to my dog. Criteria needs to be clear. You will gain the dog's confidence. The dog will be able to achieve your expectations on a more broad basis in more locations, in more environment, the more clear you are with those expectations.
That's also something very important that she's mentioning, the different environments. The fact that your dog is doing something great in one specific location doesn't actually mean that he's gonna do the same in a different location. That's a whole different level. That's why if you have the option to take a test where you studied for that test, if you're having like an online test or something like that, that's gonna be easier. It's gonna make things easier for you, because if you're in the same environment where you were taught those things initially, or you study those things by yourself, recalling that information from your brain, from your memory, is going to be a lot easier. And the same goes for dogs. If it's a whole new environment, it's a lot harder for them to concentrate, and they kind of like sometimes tend to forget what they already learned.
Now, what about if I have rules in my dog and I'm super clear with my dog, but somebody else in my family who lives with my dog doesn't have those same rules?
Didn't I just mention it? I said that when I tell the owners what to do, I tell them that basically everyone in the house should do the same so they don't confuse the dog. Let's see what she thinks.
That's not a perfect setup, but it's okay. So my late husband, he didn't follow the same rules with the dogs that I did. And so the dogs learned with him, they could keep testing. So sometimes I have to sit at the door and sometimes I don't. They were constantly testing him. They
agree to disagree. Yes, it's not a perfect world, but again, the fact that different people in the same household, and I'm not talking about guests, but different people in the same household treat the dog differently, in some cases, it might really confuse the dog and create a lot of frustration and other issues. Now again, the clients that I'm usually seeing are here for aggression and things like that. So it's much more important to make sure, even for safety reasons, it's more important to make sure that everyone are on the same page. If it's not the end of the world, then yeah, maybe you can sometimes be a little bit more lax about it. But me personally, I wouldn't recommend it. I would actually try to train the person that's not following the guidelines or not following the recommendations to follow them. People are supposed to be smart.
Didn't constantly test me because they knew criteria is the same. That criteria is currency. And our understanding is when I ask you to do something, you do it every single time. Now he would get a little jealous. Well, why don't they listen to you? Especially because he was the one who fed them their dinner every day, and it had nothing to do about whether they liked me best. It had to do about the clarity to which I lived my life with my dogs. Brene Brown, I believe, has said, clarity is kind. You want to lead with utmost kindness with your dog? Always be clear.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know that quote, but yeah, it's a pretty good one.
And that leads me to the second C, and that is consistency. You need to always consistently apply your criteria.
So as I said, when I brought up something that I do with owners, I said that it creates consistency and predictability. These two things make dogs less anxious. Why? Because they know what's going to happen next. They know how to interact with you. They know what's wrong and what's right in a way. They know what you want them to achieve, and they know they might be rewarded for it.
Needs to be the same always. So if you are the kind of person who comes in the house and lets your dog jump on you, hey, hi, I'm back, hi. Then when your 98-pound grandmother comes over and your 110-pound German Shepherd plasters her against the wall, you can't be upset.
Exactly. Also, if you have a dachshund, like we just saw in that video, you don't want them to jump up on you because they really have bad backs, and sometimes that might actually create a slip disc. The breed is cute, but they have a lot of issues.
You can't get mad at the dog because the rules have to be consistently applied, whether it's your 98-pound grandmother, a toddler, or you. Sometime is any time to a dog. So the criteria has got to be, what is bringing my dog joy? Whatever it is I want to train my dog to do, whether it be retrieve a ball. Now it's obvious. The criteria can be very clear. You sit, you wait till I throw it, you go out when I tell you to get it, you bring it all the way back and you put it right in my hand. Why is that worthwhile? Because you get to do it again.
If we mentioned earlier the fact that even with reward-based training, it doesn't mean you have to walk around with a bag full of treats. This is exactly why. Because the reward doesn't necessarily need to be treats. It's the interaction, it's playing, it's having fun. That's a reward. So all you need to do is to find something or create something that your dog loves and use it.
Now, if your dog brings it back part way and spits it out and backs up and stares at you, and you walk out and pick it up, you've made it worthwhile for them to only bring it back halfway. I'm maybe a tad more lazy than you.
That's how dogs train us.
You are, because I don't want the game of retrieve to be I retrieve part way and you retrieve part way. I want it to be you retrieve right to my hand. And so I make it worthwhile. The currency of criteria between my dog and I is you do this, you get that. Right? So know in your brain exactly what you want it to look like. And in my books, criteria is defined by what brings your dog joy.
Yeah, that's exactly what rewards are. Something that rewards your dog, something that creates that joy.
And I hope for all of you listening from now on, that's your criteria for your dog as well.
That was always my criteria. Yes, so overall, me and Susan Garrett are on the same page, and I basically support what she's saying here. You can check out her videos. I'm gonna leave a link in the information below this video. She has tons of them. Some are more hands-on, some are kind of like this, her explaining things, which is also important. I mean, I do it too. If there's someone specific or if there's a specific video that you would like me to review, please write it down in the comments. Like and subscribe, because if you watched until this point, then I hope you actually enjoyed it, and it's going to help the channel grow and reach other people that think the same way as you do. And in the meanwhile, why not watch this video next?